My fiancée humiliated me by running away at our wedding, but her father still treats me like a son. When I found out she was cheating during our engagement, her dad offered me my job back and even helped me start over in a new city. I'm Frederick, 23M, and I need advice about a situation that's been eating at me for months. This involves my ex-fiancée Reagan, 22F, and her father Hank, 52M. Let me start from the beginning because the backstory matters a lot here. When I was 17, my parents died in a house fire along with my younger sister Emma. She was only 14. I was away at a friend's house that night, which is the only reason I survived. The fire started from faulty wiring in the basement around 3 a.m. By the time the fire department arrived, the whole house was gone. I had no other family. My grandparents had passed away years earlier, and my parents were both only children. I was completely alone except for a small inheritance that barely covered funeral costs and left me with enough for maybe a year of community college. I moved into a tiny studio apartment and worked nights at a warehouse to pay rent. That's when I met Reagan. We were both taking the same biology class at community college. She sat next to me on the first day and noticed I kept falling asleep during lectures because I worked until 4 a.m. most nights. Instead of ignoring me like everyone else did, she started bringing me coffee and sharing her notes. We started dating after about a month of her basically keeping me awake through classes. Reagan came from the kind of family I'd only seen in movies. Her parents Hank and Linda had been married for 25 years. They lived in this beautiful 2-story house with a big backyard where they hosted barbecues every Sunday. Reagan had an older brother named Jake who was in medical school. When Reagan brought me home for the first time, I expected the usual awkwardness. Instead, Hank shook my hand and asked about my plans for college. When I mentioned I was working nights to pay for classes, he offered me a job at his accounting firm. Hank had built the business from nothing and employed about 15 people in our town. The job changed everything for me. Hank paid me $15 an hour to do basic filing and data entry, which was 3 times what I made at the warehouse. More importantly, he let me work flexible hours around my class schedule. When I tried to thank him, he just said that hardworking people deserved opportunities. Over the next 2 years, Hank taught me everything about running a business. He showed me how to read financial statements, manage client relationships, and handle tax preparation. He never made me feel like I was just some charity case. When I made mistakes, he corrected me patiently. When I did good work, he made sure to acknowledge it in front of other employees. Reagan and I moved in together after dating for 2 years. Her parents helped us find a decent apartment and even co-signed the lease when my credit wasn't good enough. Linda would bring us groceries every week and invite us over for dinner constantly. Jake treated me like the little brother he never had. But it was my relationship with Hank that meant the most to me. He started including me in family traditions like their annual camping trip and Christmas morning gift exchange. When I graduated with my associate degree, he was there cheering louder than anyone. He told me he was proud of me, and I realized no one had said those words to me since my parents died. Hank encouraged me to transfer to a 4-year university to study business. He promised to hold my job at the firm and even offered to pay for my textbooks. When I worried about taking on student loans, he co-signed for me without hesitation. He said investing in education was never a mistake. I proposed to Reagan last Christmas. I had been saving money for months to buy her a ring. The proposal happened at the same restaurant where we had our first official date. Reagan said yes immediately and called her parents right from the table. Hank and Linda drove over to celebrate with us that same night. Planning the wedding took 6 months. Hank insisted on paying for most of it, saying it was what fathers do for their daughters. I tried to contribute what I could, but my savings were limited. The wedding was set for last September at a church in town, followed by a reception at the country club where Hank was a member. The week before the wedding, Reagan seemed distant. She started coming home late from work and spending a lot of time on her phone. When I asked if she was okay, she said she was just stressed about the wedding details. I figured that was normal since everyone says wedding planning is overwhelming. The morning of the wedding, I got ready at Hank's house like we had planned. He helped me with my tie and told me how happy he was to officially have me as a son. We drove to the church together while Linda and Jake helped Reagan get ready at a hotel nearby. The ceremony was supposed to start at 4 p.m. By 4:15, Reagan still hadn't arrived. The guests were starting to whisper among themselves. Hank kept checking his phone and trying to call Linda. At 4:30, Linda finally arrived at the church alone. She walked straight to Hank and whispered something in his ear. Hank's face changed completely. He walked over to me and said Reagan wasn't coming. She had left the hotel with her maid of honor and wouldn't answer her phone. Linda had found a note in Reagan's room saying she couldn't go through with the marriage. I stood there in my tuxedo while everyone stared at me. Some guests started gathering their things to leave. Others came up to offer condolences like someone had died. Hank looked like he wanted to disappear. Linda was crying in the front pew. I walked out of the church and drove straight home. I packed a bag and drove to the beach town where Reagan and I had planned a honeymoon. I had already paid for the hotel room and couldn't get a refund. I spent 5 days walking on the beach and trying to figure out what had gone wrong. When I got back, there were dozens of voicemails from Hank, Linda, and Jake. I didn't return any of their calls. I couldn't face them after what happened. Hank came to my apartment twice, but I pretended not to be home. He left notes under my door asking me to call him. After 2 weeks, the calls and visits stopped. I went back to work at a different job I found through a temp agency. The pay was less, but I couldn't handle seeing Hank every day. I avoided the grocery store and restaurants where I might run into Reagan's family. Reagan never contacted me directly. Through mutual friends, I heard she had moved to a city 3 hours away and was working at a hospital there. People in town started talking about what happened. Some blamed me, saying I must have done something wrong. Others blamed Reagan for being cruel. The gossip made everything worse. 3 months passed without any contact from Reagan's family. Then Hank showed up at my apartment again last week. This time I answered the door because I could see him through the window and he looked upset. He asked if we could talk, so I let him in. Hank sat on my couch and apologized for what his daughter did. He said he was ashamed of her behavior and couldn't understand why she had run away. He told me he had been trying to reach out because he still considered me family, regardless of what happened with Reagan. He offered me my old job back at the firm. He said my position was still open and that he had been holding it for me. Hank explained that he missed having me around and that work wasn't the same without me. He promised that what happened with Reagan wouldn't affect our professional relationship. I told Hank I needed time to think about it. The truth is, I miss working with him and learning from him. That job was the best thing that ever happened to my career. But I also don't know if I can handle being around Reagan's family again. What if she comes back to town? What if there are family events where I have to see her? Hank also mentioned that he and Linda still think of me as their son-in-law, even though the wedding never happened. He said they would understand if I needed space, but they hoped I wouldn't cut them out of my life completely. I've been thinking about this for a week now. Part of me wants to take the job back because I need the money and the experience. Hank's firm is well respected in town, and working there would help my career long term. But another part of me thinks it might be too complicated to maintain a relationship with Reagan's family after what she did. The situation feels impossible. Reagan destroyed our relationship, but I don't want to lose the connection I have with her father. Hank has been more of a mentor and father figure to me than anyone since my parents died. At the same time, I can't pretend that what happened at the church didn't affect me deeply. I'm also worried about what people will think if I go back to work for Hank. Some might see it as pathetic or desperate. Others might think there's more to the story than what people know. This town is small enough that everyone will notice if I start working at the firm again. What should I do? Is it possible to maintain a relationship with my ex-fiancée's father after she left me at the altar? Or should I move on completely and find a new job somewhere else? Update 1: I wanted to update everyone on what happened after my last post. A lot of you encouraged me to take Hank's job offer, so I decided to meet with him again to discuss the details. Hank and I met at a diner outside of town where we were less likely to run into people we knew. He brought a folder with him containing my old employment contract and some paperwork for a potential raise. Before we talked about work, though, he told me something that changed everything. Hank explained that he had been trying to get information from Reagan about why she left me at the altar. For months, she had refused to give him a straight answer. She would only say that she realized she wasn't ready for marriage and needed time to figure out her life. Last week, Reagan's maid of honor Jessica called Hank. Jessica had been feeling guilty about what happened and decided to tell him the truth. According to Jessica, Reagan had been seeing someone else for 2 months before our wedding. The other guy was a nurse at the hospital where Reagan worked as a receptionist. Reagan had planned to break up with me after the wedding because she thought it would be easier than canceling everything. But on the morning of the ceremony, she panicked and couldn't go through with marrying me while she was involved with someone else. Instead of explaining this to anyone, she just ran away. Hank said he confronted Reagan about this information. She admitted it was true but begged him not to tell me because she was embarrassed about her behavior. Hank told her he couldn't keep lying to me, especially since I was considering coming back to work at the firm. This news hit me harder than I expected. Learning that Reagan had been cheating on me while we planned our wedding made the whole situation feel even worse. All those nights she came home late weren't because of work stress. All those times she seemed distant weren't because of wedding planning anxiety. Hank could see that I was struggling with this information. He told me he was furious with Reagan for lying to the family and for putting me through months of confusion. He said Linda was equally upset when she found out the truth. We talked about the job situation after that. Hank assured me that Reagan had no plans to move back to town anytime soon. She was settled in her new city and had been promoted to a better position at the hospital there. He promised that if she ever did visit, he would make sure I knew in advance so I could avoid any awkward encounters. Hank also offered me a significant raise from what I was making before. He said the firm had grown over the past few months and he needed someone he could trust to take on more responsibilities. The new position would involve training junior employees and handling some client meetings. I accepted the job offer. My first day back was 2 weeks ago, and it's been mostly positive. The other employees welcomed me back without asking too many questions about what happened. Hank has been professional but also warm, treating me the same way he did before everything fell apart. The work itself has been engaging. Hank has given me projects that challenge me and help me develop new skills. He's also been including me in strategic planning meetings for the firm's future growth. It feels good to be learning and contributing again. However, there have been some awkward moments. Linda called the office last week to invite me to Jake's birthday party. I had to decline because I wasn't ready for that level of family interaction yet. Hank understood my decision and didn't pressure me to attend. Another complication arose when some of Reagan's extended family members started contacting me. Her aunt reached out through Facebook to ask if I would be willing to talk to Reagan because she was going through a difficult time. I ignored the message, but it made me realize that other people might try to get involved in the situation. The gossip in town has also picked up again since I started working at Hank's firm. Some people are speculating about why I went back to work for my ex-fiancée's father. Others are spreading rumors about whether Reagan and I might get back together. I've been trying to ignore the talk, but it's frustrating to deal with. Hank and I had a conversation about boundaries last week. I told him that while I appreciated his job offer and wanted to maintain our professional relationship, I wasn't ready to be included in family events or casual social gatherings. He said he completely understood and would respect whatever boundaries I needed to set. I also made it clear that I didn't want to hear updates about Reagan's life unless they directly affected me. Hank agreed to keep information about her to himself. He did mention that she had asked him to pass along an apology to me, but I told him I wasn't interested in hearing it right now. The financial benefits of taking this job have been significant. I was able to move into a better apartment and pay off some debt I had accumulated during my months of unemployment. Hank also enrolled me in the firm's health insurance plan, which has been helpful since I hadn't had coverage for months. Looking ahead, I think this arrangement can work as long as we maintain clear boundaries. Hank has been respectful of my wishes and hasn't tried to push me into uncomfortable situations. The work environment feels normal, and I'm gaining valuable experience that will help my career regardless of what happens in the future. Some people might think it's strange that I'm working for my ex-fiancée's father after what happened. But Hank and I had a relationship that existed independently of my relationship with Reagan. He was my mentor and employer long before he was supposed to become my father-in-law. I'm taking things one day at a time and trying not to overthink the long-term implications of this decision. For now, I have a good job that pays well and allows me to develop professionally. That's what matters most to me right now. Update: 2 things have taken an unexpected turn since my last update. What I thought was a stable arrangement has become much more complicated. Last month, Reagan showed up at the firm unannounced. I was in Hank's office going over some client files when his secretary buzzed in to say his daughter was there to see him. I immediately got up to leave, but Hank asked me to stay. He said he wanted to handle this situation directly rather than letting Reagan dictate when and where we encountered each other. Reagan walked into the office and stopped short when she saw me sitting there. She looked different than I remembered. Her hair was shorter and she had lost weight. She glanced between Hank and me with an expression I couldn't read. Hank told Reagan that I was back working at the firm and that she needed to respect that fact. He said if she had business to discuss with him, it could wait until I finished my meeting with him. Reagan nodded and said she would wait in the lobby. After she left the office, Hank apologized for the ambush. He said he hadn't known she was coming to town and that she had driven down from her new city without calling ahead. I told him it was fine and that we might as well get these encounters over with rather than constantly worrying about when they might happen. When I finished my work with Hank, I had to walk through the lobby to leave the building. Reagan was sitting in one of the waiting area chairs, and she stood up when she saw me approaching. She said my name quietly and asked if we could talk. I told her there was nothing to discuss and kept walking toward the exit. She followed me outside and said she needed to explain what happened at our wedding. I stopped walking and turned around to face her. Reagan started talking quickly, as if she had rehearsed what she wanted to say. She told me she had made a terrible mistake and that leaving me at the altar was the worst thing she had ever done. She said she had been confused and scared about getting married so young. I interrupted her and said I already knew about the other guy. Her face went white and she asked how I found out. I told her it didn't matter how I knew, but that her lies had made everything worse than it needed to be. Reagan started crying and said the relationship with the other guy hadn't lasted long. She claimed it was just a mistake and that she realized afterward that she wanted to be with me. She asked if there was any chance we could work things out. I told her no. The trust was completely broken and I had no interest in trying to rebuild what we had. Reagan continued crying and said she understood why I felt that way, but she hoped I might change my mind eventually. This conversation lasted about 15 minutes outside the firm's office building. Several people walking by recognized both of us, which meant the whole town would probably know about it by the end of the day. I finally told Reagan I had to go and walk to my car. When I got home that evening, Hank called me. He said Reagan had told him about our conversation and that she was staying at her parents' house for a few days. He wanted to make sure I was okay and to discuss how we should handle her presence in town. I told Hank that seeing Reagan had been difficult but that I wasn't going to let it affect my work at the firm. He said he had already told Reagan that she couldn't come to the office anymore while I was working there. He also said he had made it clear to her that I wasn't interested in reconciliation. The next day at work felt tense. Other employees kept glancing at me, probably wondering about the drama that had played out in front of the building. Hank tried to act normally, but I could tell he was stressed about the situation with his daughter. That evening, Linda called me directly. She said she wanted to apologize for Reagan's behavior and to explain why they had allowed her to stay at their house. Linda told me that Reagan had been struggling since moving to the new city and had lost her job at the hospital there. According to Linda, Reagan had been fired for attendance issues related to her relationship problems with the guy she had left me for. That relationship had ended badly, and Reagan had been having trouble finding steady work since then. She had come back home hoping to get support from her family while she figured out her next steps. Linda assured me that she and Hank weren't encouraging Reagan's hopes of getting back together with me. She said they had told Reagan repeatedly that what she did was unforgivable and that she needed to accept the consequences of her choices. This conversation with Linda lasted over an hour. She told me stories about arguments she and Hank had been having with Reagan about her behavior. Linda said Reagan had expected them to automatically take her side and had been shocked when they expressed disappointment in her actions. Linda also revealed that Reagan's aunt and some other relatives had been pressuring the family to convince me to give Reagan another chance. Hank and Linda had refused to do this, which had caused tension within their extended family. Some relatives thought they were being too hard on Reagan. 3 days later, Hank told me that Reagan had gone back to her city. She had found a temporary job there and wouldn't be returning home for the foreseeable future. He seemed relieved that she was gone and apologized again for the disruption her visit had caused. However, the drama wasn't over. A week after Reagan left, her brother Jake called me. He said he wanted to talk about the situation and suggested we meet for coffee. I agreed because Jake and I had always gotten along well, and I was curious about what he wanted to say. Jake told me that he was caught in the middle of his family's conflict. He said he understood why I couldn't forgive Reagan, but he also felt bad watching his sister struggle with the consequences of her mistakes. He asked if I thought there was any possibility of reconciliation in the future. I told Jake the same thing I had told everyone else. What Reagan did was unforgivable and I had no interest in getting back together with her. Jake nodded and said he had expected that answer. He then asked if I thought it was fair for me to continue working at his father's firm given the family complications. This question surprised me. I asked Jake if he thought I should quit my job, and he said he wasn't sure. He pointed out that my presence at the firm made family gatherings awkward and that it might be better for everyone if I found work elsewhere. I told Jake that Hank had offered me the job knowing full well what the complications might be. I said if the family had problems with me working there, they should discuss it with Hank directly rather than trying to pressure me to leave. Jake apologized for bringing up the subject and said he was just trying to find a solution that would work for everyone. He promised not to interfere in my relationship with his father anymore. When I told Hank about my conversation with Jake, he was angry. He said Jake had no right to suggest that I should quit my job and that the decision about my employment was between Hank and me alone. Hank called Jake that same day to tell him to stay out of the situation. This incident made me realize that working for Hank was going to involve ongoing complications with his family. Even though Hank supported my presence at the firm, other family members clearly had mixed feelings about it. I started wondering if Jake was right that it might be easier for everyone if I found work elsewhere. But I also didn't want to give up a good job because of pressure from people who weren't directly involved in my employment. Hank had been nothing but supportive, and the work itself was going well. I decided to continue at the firm unless the situation became truly unbearable. Update 3: I'm writing this final update because several people have been asking for news about how things worked out. The situation has reached a resolution of sorts, though not in the way I expected. About a month ago, Hank asked me to stay after work for a private conversation. He seemed more serious than usual and said he had something important to discuss with me. We sat in his office and he told me that he had been thinking a lot about our working relationship and its impact on his family. Hank said that while he valued having me at the firm and considered me like a son, he was starting to realize that my presence was causing ongoing stress for everyone involved. He mentioned that Linda had been having difficulty sleeping and that Jake had been avoiding family dinners to prevent arguments about the situation. He also told me that Reagan had been calling home frequently, asking about me and whether there was any chance I might consider talking to her again. These calls were upsetting Linda and creating tension in their household. Hank said he had told Reagan to stop calling about me, but she continued to bring up the subject every time they spoke. Hank then made me an offer that I hadn't expected. He said he had been contacted by a business colleague in another state who was looking for someone with my skills and experience. The colleague ran a larger accounting firm and was willing to offer me a position with better pay and more advancement opportunities than what Hank could provide. The job would require me to relocate about 4 hours away, but Hank said he would provide an excellent reference and help me transition to the new position. He emphasized that this wasn't him trying to get rid of me, but rather an opportunity for me to advance my career while also resolving the family complications. I asked Hank if he really wanted me to leave or if he was just trying to solve his family's problems. He was quiet for a long moment before answering. He said that ideally, he would want me to stay and continue working with him indefinitely. But he also recognized that the current situation wasn't sustainable for anyone involved. Hank told me that he had been losing sleep worrying about the stress this was causing his family. He said Linda had been crying regularly about the whole situation, and that Jake had stopped visiting as often because he felt uncomfortable around me. Hank didn't want to choose between his family and me, but he was starting to feel like that's what the situation was forcing him to do. I told Hank I needed time to think about the job offer. He said I should take as much time as I needed and that there was no pressure to make a quick decision. He also assured me that if I decided to stay, he would continue to support my employment at the firm regardless of what his family thought. Over the next week, I thought carefully about what Hank had said. I realized that even though he was trying to be fair to everyone, the stress of the situation was affecting him too. He looked tired during our daily interactions, and I could tell he was struggling with the competing demands of his family and his relationship with me. I also started paying more attention to the atmosphere at work. While my colleagues were professional, I noticed that conversations sometimes stopped when I entered rooms. The office secretary mentioned that Linda had called several times asking about my schedule, presumably so she could visit the office when I wasn't there. 2 weeks after Hank made his job offer, I decided to accept the position with his colleague. I realized that staying at the firm would mean constant tension and complications for everyone involved. While I valued my relationship with Hank, I didn't want to be the source of ongoing problems for his family. When I told Hank about my decision, he looked relieved and sad at the same time. He said he was proud of me for making a mature choice and that he knew the new job would be good for my career. He also promised to stay in touch and said I would always be welcome at his firm if circumstances changed in the future. Hank helped me prepare for the transition by providing detailed references and even calling his colleague personally to discuss my qualifications. He gave me a bonus to help with moving expenses and said it was the least he could do after everything that had happened. My last day at the firm was 3 weeks ago. Hank took me out to lunch and we talked about my plans for the future. He told me he was proud of how I had handled the difficult situation and that he considered me family regardless of what had happened with Reagan. During our conversation, Hank revealed that Reagan had been asking him to give me her new phone number so she could call me directly. He said he had refused to do this and had told her that she needed to respect my decision to move on with my life. He also mentioned that Reagan was still struggling to find stable employment and had been asking her parents for financial support. I started my new job 2 weeks ago and it's been going well. The firm is larger and more modern than Hank's business, and I'm learning new skills that will help advance my career. My new boss has been impressed with my work and has already mentioned opportunities for promotion within the next year. The move to a new city has also been good for my personal life. I don't have to worry about running into Reagan or dealing with gossip about our failed relationship. I've been able to focus on work and building a new social circle without the complications of my past. Hank and I still talk occasionally. He calls every few weeks to check on how I'm adjusting to the new job and city. He's told me that things at home have been calmer since I left, and that Linda seems less stressed. Jake has started coming to family dinners again, which has made everyone happier. Reagan has apparently stopped asking about me as frequently, though Hank said she still brings up my name sometimes. He continues to tell her that I've moved on and that she needs to do the same. From what Hank has shared, Reagan is slowly accepting that our relationship is over for good. Looking back on everything that happened, I think leaving Hank's firm was the right decision. While I miss working with him and valued our relationship, the situation had become too complicated for everyone involved. Sometimes the best solution isn't the one that makes everyone happy, but the one that causes the least ongoing pain. I'm grateful for everything Hank did for me during one of the most difficult periods of my life. He gave me opportunities, treated me with respect, and tried to balance his loyalty to me with his obligations to his family. Even though our working relationship had to end, I'll always consider him an important mentor and father figure. As for Reagan, I've heard through mutual friends that she's been dating someone new and seems to be getting her life back on track. I hope she's learned from her mistakes and won't hurt anyone else the way she hurt me. But that's no longer my concern or responsibility. I'm focused on building my career and creating a new life in my new city. The job market here is good, and I'm optimistic about my future prospects. Sometimes the best thing you can do is start fresh somewhere new, and that's exactly what I'm doing. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. My sil got arrested trying to break into our house after I got pregnant. Turns out she had been stalking my husband's best friend for 15 years. I, 30F, have been married to my husband Mike, 32M, for 5 years. We met through his sister Angela, 28F, at Peterson & Associates, an accounting firm where Angela and I worked together. I joined the firm right after finishing my accounting degree and Angela had already been working there for a year. We weren't exactly friends but we got along well at work. Angela and I usually had lunch together in the break room and sometimes went for coffee after work with other co-workers. I learned about Angela's family gradually during our coffee breaks. Mike and Angela lost their parents in a car accident when Mike was 18 and Angela was 14. Their aunt Linda, 55F, took them in and raised them in Ohio while they previously lived in Michigan. This meant Mike had to give up his football scholarship to Michigan State. He started working 2 jobs, at a warehouse during the day and as a bartender at night, while taking online classes to complete his business degree. Angela was in high school then and Mike made sure she never felt the loss of their parents financially. He paid for her college education by working extra shifts and even helped her get the job at Peterson & Associates through one of his warehouse contacts. I had my own share of family problems. My mom raised me alone after my dad left us when I was 3. She worked as a nurse and did everything she could to give me a good education. She got sick with cancer during my second year of college and passed away 6 months later. I had just gotten out of a 2-year relationship where my ex cheated on me with his coworker. Angela knew about all this because I told her during one of our coffee breaks when she asked why I always stayed late at work. Mike and I met at the firm's Christmas party. Angela had invited him because she wanted him to meet her work friends. Mike wasn't like the usual guys I met. He didn't try to impress anyone, wore a simple blue shirt with black pants, and spent most of the party talking to the older accountants about investment strategies. We started talking when I went to get more punch and found him refilling his sister's cup. Our first date was actually an accident. Angela had invited both of us to dinner but got stuck with a client meeting. Instead of canceling, Mike and I decided to go ahead with dinner. We talked for hours about everything, from our favorite TV shows to our experiences growing up without parents. Mike told me how he still felt guilty about not being able to protect Angela from the trauma of losing their parents. I told him about how I struggled to pay for my mom's medical bills. Angela seemed really happy when Mike and I started dating. She would often join us for dinner or weekend movies. Sometimes she'd cancel last minute so Mike and I could have alone time. Mike told me he was relieved because Angela had never liked any of his previous girlfriends. She had always found something wrong with them. One was too clingy, another was too independent, a third one didn't respect family values. We dated for a year before Mike proposed. The wedding was small because neither of us had much family. Angela helped plan everything from the flowers to the menu. She even handled my bachelorette party and gave a beautiful speech at our wedding about gaining a sister. Aunt Linda flew in from Ohio and told me she was happy Mike had found someone who understood family values. The problem started about a month after our wedding. Angela began showing up at our house unannounced, usually around dinner time when Mike was home. Her excuses ranged from needing help with her tax returns to feeling lonely in her apartment. At first, I thought she was just missing her brother because they had always been close. Mike would drop everything to help her whenever she called, even if we were in the middle of watching a movie or having dinner. Angela also started making comments about how I wasn't keeping the house the way Mike liked it. She would rearrange our kitchen cabinets saying Mike preferred the plates on the bottom shelf. She would reorganize our closet because apparently Mike liked his work shirts arranged by color. She even tried to change our grocery shopping list because she knew which brands Mike had grown up using. I tried talking to Mike about it, but he said Angela was just trying to help. He reminded me that she had basically been his partner in running their household after their parents died. She had helped him with cooking, cleaning, and budgeting when they lived with Aunt Linda. He said it was probably hard for her to let go of those habits. 3 months ago, Mike and I decided to try for a baby. We only told our close friends because we didn't want any pressure. During a family barbecue at our house, I overheard Angela talking to Mike's childhood friend Tom, 33M, near the grill. She was telling him that I was trying to trap Mike with a baby because I was insecure about our marriage. She said I probably thought Mike would leave me like my dad left my mom. I was hurt but decided not to tell Mike because I didn't want to cause problems between them. The situation got worse when Angela found out I was already pregnant. Instead of being happy about becoming an aunt, she started telling everyone that Mike wasn't ready for kids. She told Aunt Linda that I had planned this pregnancy without discussing it with Mike. She even called Mike's workplace and told his boss that he might need extended leave because I had forced him into starting a family. This wasn't true. Mike and I had been planning this for months. He had already set up a nursery room and was researching the best schools in our area. Update 1: Angela lost her job at Peterson & Associates, but the way it happened was even worse than I initially explained. After security removed her that first time, she started a full campaign of harassment at my workplace. She would arrive at 7 a.m. and sit in her car in the parking lot, watching everyone who entered the building. She approached my coworkers when they arrived, telling them she was worried about her brother and needed their help. She cornered Beth from accounts payable in the parking garage and spent an hour telling her about how I had supposedly trapped Mike into marriage. She told Beth that Mike had been planning to propose to his ex-girlfriend before he met me, and that I had manipulated him by talking about my dead mother. Beth reported this to HR, but Angela kept finding ways to contact different employees. Angela started sending emails to the entire office using her old work email address before IT could deactivate it. She wrote long messages about how I was emotionally manipulating her brother and using my position at the company to hide my affairs. The HR department had to hold a meeting to address the situation because people were starting to question my character. My supervisor Mark had to move me to a private office away from the main floor because Angela would press her face against the office windows trying to spot me. She even followed me to client meetings, waiting outside restaurants and trying to talk to our clients about her concerns for her brother's marriage. We lost 2 major accounts because of this. After Peterson & Associates fired her, Angela started targeting my work relationships in more personal ways. She found out where my coworker Brad lived and left notes on his car warning him that I was going to accuse him of harassment like I had supposedly done at my previous job. She made up complete stories about my work history and sent them to every accounting firm in the area. The recordings she made in our house were more extensive than we first realized. She had been collecting them for over 8 months, starting right after our wedding. She didn't just hide devices, she wore a recording pen whenever she visited. She recorded every family dinner, every casual conversation, and even arguments Mike and I had about normal marriage stuff. Angela spent weeks editing these recordings. She would take bits of different conversations and piece them together. She made it sound like I was planning to get pregnant to access Mike's inheritance from his parents. She created clips where it seemed like I was mocking Angela's grief over losing her parents. She even edited conversations to make it sound like I was admitting to cheating on Mike with multiple coworkers. The fake social media accounts she created weren't just random profiles. She made detailed fake accounts pretending to be my college classmates. She went through my old yearbooks that she found while snooping in our house and used real people's names. She contacted my actual college friends pretending to be other classmates, telling them she had proof I'd cheated on my exams and bought my way into the accounting program. When Aunt Linda confronted her about all this, Angela's real issues came to light. She had been dating James, Tom's brother, since before our wedding. James was a partner at his law firm and had promised to leave his wife once he made senior partner. Angela had been planning their future together, even putting a deposit on an apartment near his office. James's wife found their messages on his iPad and confronted him at a family dinner. Instead of leaving his wife like he had promised, James told everyone Angela had been stalking him and threatening to tell his kids about their affair. He got a promotion to the main office in Chicago and moved his family there within a week, leaving Angela with an apartment lease she couldn't afford and a ruined reputation in their social circle. Update 2: After losing both her job and James, Angela's life fell apart completely. She couldn't afford her $2,000 monthly rent for her downtown apartment anymore. She had leased a BMW last year trying to impress James's law firm colleagues, so she had to break the lease and pay a huge penalty. She sold most of her furniture and designer clothes on Facebook Marketplace just to cover her bills. She moved to Oak Meadows Apartments, probably the worst complex in town. The place was known for drug deals and police raids. Her drinking got out of control there. She would start at breakfast with vodka in her orange juice. Her new neighbors complained about her sitting in the building hallway at night, crying and calling Mike's name. Mike changed his phone number 3 times in 1 month. The first time, Angela got his new number from his gym membership account. She pretended to be his wife and convinced the staff to update his contact details. The second time, she befriended the receptionist at his office by bringing her coffee every morning for a week until she shared his number. The third time, she followed his Uber driver home and paid him $100 for Mike's number. She got banned from every bar within walking distance of her new apartment. At Murphy's Pub, she tried to seduce the married bartender by claiming she was a lawyer too, just like James. At the Blue Room, she got into a fistfight with a woman who looked like Tom's wife. The Royal Oak had to call the police when she passed out in their bathroom and refused to leave. Our neighbors started getting concerned about their safety. Angela would park her beat-up Honda, she had to trade in the BMW, on different streets around our house and watch our movements. She convinced Mrs. Parker, our 70-year-old neighbor, that she was conducting a police investigation into financial fraud. Mrs. Parker started keeping a log of when we left the house and gave it to Angela. She got a job as a waitress at Denny's but showed up drunk most days. She would tell customers long stories about how her brother had been brainwashed by his wife. When families with kids came in, she would cry at their tables about how Mike's future children would never know their real aunt. The breaking point came after she lost the waitressing job. She showed up at our house at midnight, completely wasted. She was wearing her old bridesmaid dress from our wedding, now stained and torn. She kept screaming that she needed to save Mike from my black magic. Apparently she had been watching YouTube videos about witchcraft and convinced herself I had used spells to steal her brother. When we wouldn't answer the door, she tried breaking in through every window. She used her credit card on the back door like she had seen in movies. When that didn't work, she tried breaking a window with her high heel. That's when we called the police. They found 3 empty vodka bottles in her car and a notebook full of drawings of Tom's face. The police officer who arrested her was actually Tom's cousin Kevin. Angela didn't recognize him in her drunk state and started telling him everything. She confessed that she had been in love with Tom since she was 15. The year their parents died, she had tried to kiss Tom at Christmas dinner. Tom stopped her and said she was like a sister to him. Every boyfriend Angela had since high school was somehow connected to Tom. She dated his college roommate, his coworker, and even his personal trainer. She kept hoping Tom would get jealous and realize he had feelings for her. When Tom started dating his now wife Rachel in college, Angela transferred to their university and joined the same sorority as Rachel to spy on them. She started dating James 6 months before Tom's wedding. She thought that becoming James's wife would keep her close to Tom forever. She spent $30,000 of her savings on a personal stylist, teeth whitening, and Botox, trying to look more like the type of women Tom dated. James took advantage of her desperation and kept promising to leave his wife. The police station called Mike at 3 a.m. to bail her out. Angela spent the night throwing up in the drunk tank and telling everyone who would listen about her love for Tom. She showed them the Tom shrine she had created on her phone, over 2,000 photos of him that she had collected from social media and family events. When Mike arrived at the station, she tried convincing him that Tom's wife was actually an imposter who had stolen her identity. She had created a whole conspiracy theory about how Rachel was working with me to keep her away from the 2 men she loved most, her brother and Tom. The station's social worker recommended a mental health evaluation, but Angela refused. She kept insisting that she was the only sane person in the family. Mike told her this was the last time he would help her. He had already spent over $50,000 that year dealing with her various crises, paying off her credit cards, covering her bounced rent checks, and handling her legal fees from the bar fights. Tom and his wife finally told us everything after Angela's arrest. Over the past 5 years, Angela had sent Rachel hundreds of threatening letters using different handwriting styles. She would order pizza deliveries to their house at 3 a.m. She once broke into their garage and filled Tom's car with hundreds of red roses. Rachel had been documenting everything but didn't want to upset Mike by reporting Angela. Update 3: Angela's arrest was finally the wake-up call she needed. Her new apartment kicked her out after the incident. She tried staying with different relatives but no one would take her in. Everyone had seen the videos of her trying to break into our house. She ended up renting a room in a shared house with 5 strangers. Aunt Linda visited her at the shared house and said the place was a mess. Angela had been sleeping on a mattress on the floor and living off ramen noodles. She lost her waitressing job at the diner because she kept showing up late. Her roommates complained about her crying all night and talking to herself. Last week, Aunt Linda forwarded us a long email from Angela. She wrote about how she had always depended on Mike after their parents died. She felt abandoned when he got married and started his own family. She admitted that she tried to destroy our marriage because she thought she would get her brother back. Angela also wrote about her obsession with Tom. She said watching Tom get married broke something inside her. Dating James was her way of staying in Tom's life. When that fell apart, she couldn't handle seeing everyone else happy and successful. The email ended with Angela saying she was moving to California to live with her college roommate. She found a job at a small accounting firm there. She asked us not to reply, she just wanted us to know she was sorry for everything. Mike read the email but didn't respond. Aunt Linda stays in touch with Angela's roommate in California. Apparently Angela has been sober for 2 months now. She goes to group therapy twice a week and shares an apartment with her roommate near the beach. She deleted all her social media accounts and changed her phone number. Mike says he might consider talking to Angela again in a few years, but right now we're focused on our baby boy who's due next month. Some family members think we're being too hard on Angela. They say she's trying to change and deserves another chance. But we've learned that forgiveness doesn't mean you have to let toxic people back into your life. We're happy with our decision to keep our distance, at least until Angela proves she's really changed. Tom and his wife are going to be our baby's godparents. Angela doesn't know this yet and probably never will. We've finally found peace in our lives and we're not letting anyone disrupt that again.